This is becoming a regular thing. I upload a video about a certain topic. A month or two passes and there's new information to be added to the recent video, or something has to be altered a little. Well, since this video would be pretty short, if I were to simply talk about yoga and lunar capital again, I'll add my thoughts on the topic of the sages of Gensokyo that has been quite popular suddenly. I wonder why. So without any further ado, let me once again make some corrections and some additions to the stub of a theory that the last video was. Okay, first things first. Let's start with the least meaningful one. This really doesn't change anything from the video. This is just a small mistake I made. The mistake was that the archer Yi didn't actually die due to the old age. He was actually killed by Junko. And that's it. It really doesn't change anything from the story, but I still wanted to point that out. Okay, now when that's out of the way, let's move on. Okay, the first real topic of this video is the assumption that Renko could actually be yoga. I said that it is possible, but there's no proof to back up that assumption, and I'm still saying that. But it turns out that there could be a solid reason for why Lunar Capital would want to keep her safely locked up in the Lunar Capital and not to hand her over to Junko nor Yukari, if yoga indeed would be Renko. According to the official Touhou timeline, the event where Yoga drank the Hora elixir happened about 4100 years ago, so in the pretty far past. The first Genso Lunar War happened after that, and the planning of the Hagure barrier even after that. This is important to know because if it were to be in any other order, there would be no way for Renko and Yoga to be the same person. Okay, let me explain what I found. We all know that the moon has two sides, the scientific and the fantastic side. These two sides of the moon are really much like the Gensokyo and the outside world. So much so that Gensokyo and the fantastic side of the moon are actually connected to each other via some sort of a passage that basically connects the two, making the fantastic side of the moon and Gensokyo basically the same reality. But why are the two same? Well, the answer may come from the fact that the creation of the lunar capital and yoga being moved to moon happened almost at the same time. Eirin was the one who constructed the lunar capital and also the one who gave yoga the Hora elixir. To simplify things, Eirin is, as far as we know, the oldest lunarian out there, being at least 38 million years old, and according to some other sources, hundreds of millions of years old. However, even with all her knowledge, she still doesn't have the power to construct a barrier between the scientific and fantastic side of the moon. So this is where yoga comes into play. As we all know, lunarians and humans are really close to each other. So much so that the only known difference between humans and lunarians is the fact that humans are impure and lunarians are pure. In the other words, humans age while lunarians don't. This means that lunarian who becomes impure can become human, and human who becomes pure can become lunarian. Which brings us to Renko. Now prepare yourself because this is really far stretched, even on my standards. One thing I've noted is that Maribel/Yukari is known to be able to travel through time as well, but only during when she was still known as Maribel. Yukari has never been seen traveling through time, only between locations. This could be the reason why she couldn't just take Renko back from the Lunarians just by warping through time. This would also somewhat explain how Renko could be 41,000 years into the past. And remember, yoga is said to be a goddess, but human can become goddess after enough people start to worship the said human and have faith in him or her. If indeed Renko would have ended up in that far back in the history, her intelligence and knowledge in themselves would surpass any of those of the people who lived during that time. And in the best case scenario, they would start to worship her as a god. But how would Lunarians be interested in her? Well, if indeed this is Renko we are talking about, she becoming a god would give her powers. And since her knowledge on the famous string theory is unparalleled, I'd wager that it would affect the powers she would gain. And if this indeed happened, it is no wonder why Lunarians would be interested in getting her to themselves. She could be the original reason why the fantastic side and the scientific side of the moon have barrier between themselves in the first place. Renko could be the reason for that, and to make sure that the barrier cannot fade away, they gave Yoga, or in this case Renko, the Horai elixir, to make sure that there was no way for her to die. This however brings us to the creation of the Great Hakurei Barrier. We all know that it was Yukari who made it, but it is also implied that even she couldn't have probably made that kind of a barrier all by herself. And when we remember that the planning of the Hakurei barrier started quite soon after the first Genso-Lunar War, I bet that you are starting to see the big picture. Renko or not, it is still very likely that reaching Yoga was Yukari's main goal in the first Genso-Lunar War. She probably didn't have the required power to construct that barrier all by herself, so she needed to fight Yoga and to get her to help in the construction of the Hakurei barrier. And since the barrier is standing to this day, it appears that Yukari succeeded, and why it has to be Yoga who helped her in the construction of the barrier, or at least gave her the knowledge on how to do so. That's because Gensokyo and Lunar Capital are directly connected with each other. It would be just normal that the two would be connected if there would be this one person behind it all, who may or may not be Renko. The reason why I believe that this might support Renko actually being Yoga is the fact that besides Yukari there is no other being in Touhou lore who would have any possible relation on the existence and creation of other dimensions than Renko with her knowledge on the string theory. Also, one strange detail I found while rereading The Cage in Lunatic Runagate. In the first chapter, Eirin directly states that the Apollo mission led to an open conflict between the Lunarians and humans, though this was kept secret from the public. It was said that the reason why humans couldn't build a base on the moon was due to the Lunarians considering this as an assault, which resulted in them fighting back each time humans tried to colonize the moon. Humans lost every time. But when we go back to the future, no pun intended, we know that the humans have finally colonized the moon. And there's only two possibilities on how this could have happened. Either humans and Lunarians finally found an understanding between each other, or humans finally overpowered the Lunarian defense forces. How it was done is still boggling to me because the open conflict between the two should be prevented by the barrier around the fantastic side of the moon. Either the humans managed to break through, or the barrier faded away due to someone finally achieving their goals. Though I still believe that humans and Lunarians fighting a peaceful solution is the most plausible one. This being said, I still cannot confirm whether Renko is or isn't actually Yoga. I'm just saying that the connections are there, but we still lack the hard evidence. Only thing that is strange is that Yukari doesn't seem to be capable of time traveling like she used to be while she was still known as Maribel. But now let's forget about Renko and Yoga for a while, and let's talk about the sages of Gensokyo, the ones who created the land. As you all very well know, there are currently 3 sages that we know by name: Yukari Yakumo, Kosen Ibaraki, and Okina Matara. Okina being the most recent addition to this enigmatic group. You'd think that Okina being added to the lore would open up some really fascinating lore or deep story, but I have to disappoint you with the fact that until Okina gets some appearances in the manga series or her story is improved via other means, there really isn't much to talk about her. The only thing we know is that she and Yukari knew each other, she has her own enemies, and that she presumably knew Cousin too. Was she with Yukari in the first Genso Lunar War? I don't know. Does she have information or does she know yoga? I don't know. How long she and Yukari have worked together to create Gensokyo? I don't know. Has she always been allied to Yukari or did she oppose her at some point? I truly don't know. Only one who does is Zun, and the best we can hope for is that he will update on Okina soon. But that doesn't mean that we cannot do anything. There's still some speculation to be done. For an example, are there more sages than Okina, Cousin and Yukari? I believe so. If indeed yoga is the original reason why Lunar Capital and Gensokyo are separated from the outside world, then we could even technically call her too a sage of Gensokyo. But let's not get too excited. But I'm quite sure that we will hear more about Okina soon. And before you start to yell that I was wrong about the 20th anniversary of Touhou when I said that we will most likely get the 4th member of the 4 Divas of the Mountain, I'd still like to point out that the Touhou 15.5 is still on its way. And those who have read the Forbidden Scrollery know already that it and the upcoming fighting game will have some sort of story relation with each other. And spoiler alert, since the Yukai sealed in that scroll was confirmed to be an Oni, I can only assume that the main antagonist of the Antanomy of Common Flowers will be that said Oni. So a possible 4th member of the 4 Divas of the Mountain. But that also means that we can say goodbye for Kongara being the possible 4th member. Rest in peace. But before I end this video, I'd like to give a shout out to a YouTuber called Angeline. I hope I didn't butcher that name completely because I don't know how to pronounce it. But I'd like to give her a shout out because her channel focuses onto Touhou theorizing, and since Touhou theorizing is becoming a lost art, I'd like to support her channel. So if you have interest and time, please go to take a look at her channel. I'll leave a link to the description. But anyhow, this has been the add-on to our recent theory. We may have the reason why yoga is so important for the Lunarians and for Yukari, but even after all I said, we still cannot safely assume that, oh yeah, she is totally Renko, case closed. No. We just have to hope that Zun will either expand Renko's or Yoga's story, or in the best case scenario both at the same time. And when it comes to Okina, I promise that she will appear in the upcoming videos. When exactly is still unknown, but I'm pretty sure that as soon as she starts to appear in the either Wild and Horned Hermit or Visionary Fairies in the Shrine, I can start to gather some much needed information about her. But now, like always, I have to point out that the things said on the video are just speculations. So be careful if you decide to believe me. I can very well be proven wrong. But still, now is your turn to tell me what do you think about it. Are you already satisfied with Renko being yoga, or do you believe otherwise? And if you do have any theory ideas, please leave them into the comment section for everyone to see them. But for now, I have to bid you a farewell. My name is Teovian, and we'll see in the next video.